We're taking a look back at the biggest political turning points, trends, and controversies as we hit rewind on Rising. We've got the power players, scandals, and outrageous decisions that have defined our conversations.
Daily Mail released a cache of documents today exposing the extent of Jeffrey Epstein's close connections with celebrities and elites. The Daily Mail got a hold of never-before-seen emails detailing the disgraced financier's private calendars and communication that included past presidents, prime ministers, and billionaires like Bill Gates, Peter Thiel, Facebook's early investor Sean Parker, and other prominent names.
Epstein's estate gave the files to the U.S. Virgin Islands government. The Daily Mail obtained the files and broke down who and how the people were involved. I'm looking at this article. This is Irina Shayk, Chris Rock, Richard Branson, Peter Thiel, as mentioned, Jeff Koons, Mariah Carey's ex, Jamie Dimon, the chief executive of J.P. Morgan,
right,
who is part of this legal dispute with the Virgin Islands.
Right. So the question is how much J.P. Morgan and implicitly Jamie Dimon were aware of why and how Epstein was using the bank to facilitate the financial transfers that facilitated these crimes, the pedophilia, the arrangement of meetups with these young girls, all of this kind of thing. And so having this private address book that shows kind of an intimate look at his efforts to reach out to various public figures, to talk to them, to rehabilitate his public image, all after he had already spent, an 18-month prison term for pedophilia, is particularly revealing, especially since there are these emails back and forth to J.P. Morgan figures like Jess Staley, who I think we talked about in another segment, who's been a center point of some of these investigations.
Right. There's also a lot more with the Prince Andrew situation here. Shows evidence of meeting with Prince Andrew and his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, that Epstein had very intimate, detailed knowledge of their finances, maybe more. In a scheduling entry for March 3rd, 2010, Epstein's assistant wrote, still need to try and schedule the Duchess for Tuesday or Wednesday.
And moreover, so apparently Epstein was also trying to persuade J.P. Morgan to work with Bill Gates on a $100 million fund for elite donors and a crunch meeting that was taking place back in 2011. And so remember, this is coming at the same time that we just found out about the story where he was basically blackmailing Bill Gates over having an affair with someone who was of age and consensual and all of that. And Bill Gates just recently came out and said, I did it, to get out from under, I think, the more heavy accusations of it being
that he might
associated
have
with.
Yes.
Exactly. But it's interesting to see here Epstein trying to kind of work on Bill Gates's behalf in these financial contexts, when at the same time, apparently, he had this hold over some of these figures as a consequence of blackmailing them. So it does present an interesting picture. Are we going to find out that some of these figures that he has relationships with had these kind of coercive relationships the way that Bill Gates had? At what point did it become coercive as opposed to a voluntary relationship where they had mutually beneficial business interests with each other? Why is someone like Bill Gates needing to have someone like Jeffrey Epstein, who is not a financial expert in any way, advocating on his behalf for donations and working with the bank in this way? It is a very curious picture that's being painted.
David Blaine, the magician, as well. Apparently, their schedule says that in June 2013, the schedule says David Blaine will stop by toward the end of the dinner. Maybe he just appears there.
I was going to say that he wishes the story would disappear. I'm sorry. I mean, you gotta laugh. It is, or you cry. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing.
It's amazing his level of connection to just influential, famous people.
Because remember, he started out by first insinuating himself into a job as a teacher at New York prep school Dalton, having no qualifications to even to have that job.
Millions and millions and millions of dollars as a stock broker type person, money manipulator, money mover, makes an absolute killing, and then uses that money to buy his way into high society and has connections with, I mean, it's incredible that people would continue to associate with him, to take his calls.
Yeah.
Because this isn't like, this book, his schedule, it's not just his aspirations. It's not like he's saying, I would love to meet Prince Andrew. I would love to call Bill Clinton. I would love to do all these things. Like, he did them. Like, people willingly associated with themselves. When they had money issues, when they had money questions, they called him. They set up meetings with him. There's evidence of that. Like, people turned to him. They relied on him.
Look at the Noam Chomsky story. Where,
Where
Noam Chomsky, he was moving money around for Noam Chomsky. When asked for comment, Noam Chomsky says it's basically none of your business. But he helped me out with financial
that college
matters.
president who wanted his wife's poetry, something or other.
Oh, I thought that was just a donation that was made on behalf.
That's what he wanted.
Okay.
But of all the people you could solicit a donation from, there are a lot of people who had not, previously been incarcerated for sexual misconduct with minors.
Right. Well, I do think that this. Look, I think that this particular story. Remember, this is all of this information is the consequence of this lawsuit that's happening on the Virgin Islands. And
good journalism by places like the Wall Street Journal and now the Daily Mail.
Yeah, but it's amazing how little of this information we were able to get out in the context of just the normal American reporting practices, potentially because there were so many people now we're reading from this trove of information who were personally implicated. I mean, that has been the subtext of this entire story, that anything that can be done to keep the people implicated from being named will be done, which is why people look so skeptically on the events surrounding Epstein's ultimate demise. So I think this is this lawsuit, I'm not saying it needs to be brought just to get discovery, but the consequence of it, of all of this discovery material coming out, is fascinating. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who are looking very nervously at this, including Bill Gates, who very, very quickly tried to distance himself from it, or has, I think, maybe successfully distanced himself by saying, yes, I was having an affair, but that's it.
Yeah.
Well, it remains to be seen if that is
a reminder that Staley, this J.P. Morgan official, the Daily Mail again has these just absurd, these unbelievable emails where Staley says to Epstein, I realize the danger in sending this email. This is December 4th, 2009, but it was great to be able today to give you in New York City a long, heartfelt hug. And then they talk about Disney princesses, and it's just utterly disgusting and revolting, and wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many political figures across the aisle also who have associations with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
Do you think there are any political implications here? You see him with Donald Trump, you see him with Elon Musk, you see him with Bill Clinton. This
really is textbut elites versus everyone else, because it is so bipartisan, so cross-ideological. The ideological interest here was in moving around, maybe hiding, giving money. Money, money, money. That's it. It didn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. It just mattered if you had money or fame or prestige. That's what he was interested in cultivating. This is, you couldn't, you had to buy your way into this, or he had to be interested in you because of money. So it's really an elites versus everyone else story, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Which is why there's so much interest on the story among everyone else. Not a lot of interest in the elites in having this continuing to be reported. More Rising right after this.
Second black book of Jeffrey Epstein's has been released. According to Insider, the 1997 address book links Epstein to Christina Grievin Cuomo, a well-known editor and the wife of CNN's Chris Cuomo. Besides her name, the entry in the book includes her office address, phone number, and home phone number. In 2019, CNN anchor Chris Cuomo discussed Jeffrey Epstein's friendships on his show. Let's take a listen to that.
Now, when we're talking about Epstein, you got to stick to what is common sense on these things, all right? Don't get buried in legalese. Don't follow the finger pointing, and please don't get caught up in the intrigue of who was better friends with this guy. Who cares?
Yeah, who cares? I mean, that's of course the line that you're going to hear coming from people like Chris Cuomo, who are the children of extremely powerful establishment families. And so while I don't think that his now wife's name and address and office phone number being in that address book is damning in and of itself, but what it does speak to is how people in powerful circles all go back to Epstein because they all travel together in these efforts to do whatever it is that they're doing. They're all fellow travelers in trying to ensconce themselves in these powerful circles to enhance their own power and to network with each other, basically.
Right, they knew this guy.
Yeah.
He was part of their social circle. She was an editor at basically a gossip paper, and the gossip papers and the New York social scene are obviously very much intertwined, and Epstein was known to try to use them effectively to rise through the social circles of New York City. For no obvious reason. Like he didn't have any talent. He didn't, he hadn't done anything. He just had a ton of Victoria's Secret money that he was sitting on, and also money from whatever intelligence agencies that he may have been cooperating with or working as an asset for. But that we still don't know the details of that.
And that's why he was using the gossip magazines that Christina Grievin Cuomo formerly worked at, so that when rubber hit the road, he would have all of this goodwill built up in powerful circles. And by the way, it worked great for him. If you look back on the decision that was made by prosecutors down in Florida that originally let him off so easily, this all worked out great for him. All of the sort of checks, or all of the things he did to ensure that he would be protected, it all worked out. The system worked great for Jeffrey Epstein.
Until it didn't.
Yeah. But speaking of which, Christina Cuomo wasn't the only person recently linked to Epstein. According to a new book by Miami Herald reporter Julie K. Brown, attorney Ken Starr, who headed the investigation into President Bill Clinton's affair with Monica Lewinsky, reportedly waged a, quote, scorched earth legal campaign to persuade federal prosecutors to drop a sex trafficking case against Jeffrey Epstein. A former advisor to Starr during the impeachment trials, Judy Hirschman, wrote an op-ed in Medium attacking him recently, saying, quote, Starr has been at the intersection of so many wrong turns our country has made, including taking up cases for, quote, Supreme Court nominee accused of sexual assault Jeffrey Epstein, a Baylor University football player accused of rape, and a school teacher found guilty of molesting 5 young schoolgirls. Now, I'm going to put the Kavanaugh thing aside in this moment and focus on what she said in that Medium post about her conversation with Ken Starr over Epstein. She said that Ken Starr said, I need you to go talk to the Epstein guy, take a look at this case. He's somebody who got caught fooling around with a couple of 2 young girls who lied about their age. And that to me was the really telling quote in this report. We don't know if it's true. It still needs to be vetted. She put this on her Medium, and it wasn't published through an editorial process at a news outlet. But if that is true, it does speak to exactly how Jeffrey Epstein, by building this network of powerful people, was able to have the goodwill to the point where he could just go to a powerful attorney like Ken Starr and say, hey, they lied about their age, need some help on this case. That's how you end up in the circles that end up helping you.
Right, and we don't just have to take her word for it. And, as she talks about, she was girlfriend, boyfriend with Ken Starr.
Had an affair in her words, yeah.
With Ken Starr, which started while he was impeaching the president for having an affair, for lying about an affair. We already knew that Newt Gingrich, who led the impeachment, was having an affair while he was leading that charge against Clinton. Now we know. Now we learned from her that Ken Starr was as well.
And this was all about a Clinton affair. Everyone's just having an affair and covering up for their affair. That's how Washington works.
Yeah, and so we don't have to take her word for it, because Julie Brown, who blew the lid on all of this for the Miami Herald, has her new book out in which she very very much details Ken Starr's central role in this, and for people who have lived through this generation of unfolding politics, watching Ken Starr get a hold of what was the Whitewater investigation and drag it on for years, and finally wind up with Monica Lewinsky and an impeachment trial, to learn that Ken Starr was the fixer, the lead attorney, who's pulling strings for Jeffrey Epstein. Mm-hmm. In the White House to get him this sweetheart non-prosecution agreement is just too much.
Do you know what's sort of tragically perfect about all of this is that Ken Starr and Bill Clinton are now both implicated in having inexcusably close ties to Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, Bill Clinton is one of it is true that the system worked for Jeffrey Epstein until it didn't, but I still think the system is working for Jeffrey Epstein because we know that all of these tapes were confiscated from his brownstone in New York. We still have no idea what the hell was on those tapes, and his links to potential intelligence services around the world is probably an example of why, or an explanation for why we still don't know so much and why we still haven't heard enough from Ghislaine Maxwell. And you can keep talking about all of these different things, but the fact that it is so symbolic to see Ken Starr and Bill Clinton caught up, and I think Bill Clinton to a higher degree. We still have we have reports that he was on Little St. James, Jeffrey Epstein's sex island, essentially, and we still don't know the extent of his relationship. Ghislaine Maxwell was at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. The Clintons have tried to obfuscate the closeness of that relationship between Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein, but the fact that Ken Starr and Bill Clinton have been joined together in this beautiful marriage when it comes to their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein is so incredibly telling.
Right. And that's all true, but Ken Starr's role here was to get him out of a prosecution agreement so that he could continue his reign of terror for the next, 10 years or so.
Absolutely.
Countless girls' and women's lives have been destroyed as a result of that. I mean, Julie Brown identified more than 50 victims. Many of those after this period that Ken Starr got him off.
Absolutely, no disagreement there. To see both sides of the political aisle who are so divided over elections and so divided over the differences in their partisan goals in Washington, D.C., also then have the same ties to something as disgusting and reprehensible as the ring that Jeffrey Epstein was overseeing for years.
And your point about the evidence that they uncovered is worth repeating. They have all of these CDs that say on them the famous person's name and what they're doing.
Yep.
Okay, why have we not heard anything about that since then?
Yep, they've had them for a hell of a long time at this point.
Investigative journalist Li Fong wrote yesterday, Epstein sent many rambling emails suggesting projects with Bill Gates. Asked to prep presentations for new Gates-backed foundation, $100 million minimum investment expanding on exchanging prior Gates-related interests like vaccines and maternal care. In one of those emails from February 25th, 2011, Epstein reportedly wrote, Gates guy here today, no reporters, I took care of that. Stay calm and focused. We need to speak. I am staying until very late tonight. Seeing Gates read donor on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Wednesday set aside for 2-3 hours to discuss exactly this.
This comes as more information on Epstein's dealings are coming to light amid J.P. Morgan's fresh accusations over ties to the accused sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, so these are, filings from this J.P. Morgan Virgin Islands lawsuit. So just more and more emails from J.P. Morgan officials, Epstein talking about it, just all the influential, important people with lots of money that Epstein was connecting to government officials at the island, to the bank as well. And his ongoing kind of relationship with Gates, which is, these messages to Gates people are 2011. So that's after he's already a known sex offender. He's been convicted. He got his house arrest or whatever kind of deal he got for sexual misconduct with underage girls. So you can't say, oh, I didn't know. It was known. It was known by then. There's some joking about Miley Cyrus, who at the time of this is 15. She's a Disney star at the time. So that's a clear inclination of an awareness of exactly the kind of thing Epstein goes for. It's disgusting.
Yeah. I think
very disgusting.
It's a bit of a lens into what the world is like for bankers in America at the very high level. The emails that Li Fong posted to Twitter, you have one from a Mary Erdoes at jpmorgan.com official email to an unknown person saying, obviously they're at a party. This is, really late at night. The first email is about 8:30. This has turned into a cheesy broker fest. Totally not cool. The only cool people here are at Glenn's table. Same as bat mitzvah. So maybe they've known each other for some time. The response is, at 1:20 a.m. Epstein there with Miley Cyrus. And so this is like official JP Morgan emails where this exchange is happening. Was Epstein actually there with Miley Cyrus? We don't know. But the fact that they made the joke shows that these bankers on their JP Morgan emails are comfortable joking about the billionaire being out with young girls.
They were comfortable joking about a lot of really sketchy stuff. You know, we've read these emails in the past talking about who's your favorite like Disney princess. It suggests again a deep familiarity with the kind of bad and illegal stuff that Jeffrey Epstein was interested in and had already been convicted for. Would eventually be arrested for again. Yet right up until the very end, I've talked about this several times, but I think it's always worth bringing up, including given her, recent crusade, the higher media profile she has sought for herself as part of the pushback from Democrats on Twitter files and on RFK Jr. Stacey Plaskett, the delegate of the Virgin Islands, has been front and center at these hearings, accusing Matt Taibbi of perjury, accusing RFK Jr. of anti-Semitism. Stacey Plaskett, delegate of the Virgin Islands, trying to get Jeffrey Epstein at her fundraisers as recently as 2018, I believe, the year before he was arrested again and then died in allegedly because of suicide in prison. This was someone with full knowledge and awareness of his wrongdoing, was courting his influence, his access to funds and to important wealthy people.
Right. Plaskett, who originally said that she wasn't really aware that he was donating. She was completely unaware of his donations to her campaign, which, then she had to say in deposition last month.
It's just a lie.
Yeah, she was directly introduced.
Yeah, you can see the emails from her team saying, oh, he's going to be there, right? Let's make sure he gets a personal invite.
Not just for the political dealings, but was an attorney at the tax firm that worked with Jeffrey Epstein. So even before she ran for public office, she knew Jeffrey Epstein. But then there's obvious documents where she's asking that he be invited to the events. She was clearly aware, most likely directly had been speaking with Jeffrey Epstein.
And Jeffrey Epstein, had his own agenda for the Virgin Islands. He wanted the sex offender policies of the Virgin Islands changed. Wonder why that could be. He was paying for some government officials, I think, schooling for their kids. This is, and this is something I've, again, mentioned when we talk about this lawsuit, but because the lawsuit is from Virgin Islands to JP Morgan, but it seems pretty clear that a lot of the government officials of the Virgin Islands were very much complicit in the exact kind of nefarious, we'll find out if it's illegal, who knows, but very icky behavior that they're going after JP Morgan for their relationship to Jeffrey Epstein, that they are complicit as well. So whatever they recoup from JP Morgan as a result of this lawsuit, if this is just, going to build like a nicer, governor's mansion or something or whatever it is in the Virgin Islands, that'll be pretty ridiculous because they're all over this too. So it is the victims of Jeffrey Epstein who need to be made whole again, not powerful people who were well aware of this pattern of abuse for 15 years.
Or maybe, do the job of passing some anti-corruption legislation. Not only was Epstein donating to Plaskett's campaign, there was an email where an aide wrote to Epstein to confirm that a $13,000 corporate donation planned for the Democratic Party, not the Plaskett campaign, would be made, quote, for the benefit of Stacey Plaskett. So this exceeds the amount that you can donate in an election cycle to an individual candidate. And this shows the kind of shady dealing that goes on between very rich donors like Jeffrey Epstein and PACs or political campaigns, right? You're circumventing FEC regulations by saying, I'm giving this money to the Democratic Party because I can give an unlimited amount, but I'm letting you know that this needs to go to the benefit of Stacey Plaskett, which is not a decision the donor can make. That's a decision that the party needs to make of what to do with that money. And so that's a pretty damning facet of this whole expose as well of what's going on in the Virgin Islands. And, she's a delegate to Congress and she's risen to a pretty prominent position as well.
Yeah, she's been all over, as I said, the Twitter files hearing. She grilled Taibbi and Schellenberger. She accused Taibbi of making up, of getting things wrong, and it way overplayed her hand there. And then at this RFK Jr. hearing last week, she was one of the people, saying things that I don't think that I think are exaggerations and mischaracterizations of what RFK Jr. said. She's positioning herself as very much part of the Democratic establishment, pushing back on people who are questioning government abuse related to social media and speech and all sorts of other things. But she has some things to be looked at for.
Yeah, podcaster Joe Rogan actually suggested that Bill Clinton was blackmailed by Jeffrey Epstein, who hung up a painting of Clinton in his home. Let's watch this.
Why do you think Epstein had that giant painting of Bill Clinton in a dress in his foyer?
Dude.
Do you know that picture?
Yeah.
That painting? Epstein's
taste in art was not great. Like, if you look at the
shit... No, that was great. That painting is like, I got you, bitch. That's what that is.
Oh, right.
You got...
I'm going to see if I can put the painting up on screen. What do you think about the blackmailing of Bill Clinton?
So I love the way the response goes by his guest there on the podcast of Joe Rogan, because it wasn't like, yeah, Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton were obviously very close for him to have this painting commissioned. It was, his taste in art's pretty bad. I wouldn't want Bill Clinton in a dress on the wall. It's a hilarious response.
Well, it's not. So let's put it. So there it is.
Yeah.
So it's not actually. I don't think. So Bill Clinton. Forgive me if I'm wrong.
He didn't pose
for this. Somebody else posed for it, and it was painted, and then they just painted it to look like Bill Clinton's face. So the idea that I don't think this is evidence of that he's being black. Like, he was public knowledge. This painting. Well, I guess later became public knowledge, but it's not. He wasn't trying to. Bill Clinton wasn't like trying to prevent this painting from getting out or something. Like, he didn't pose for it. It was just like anyone could do this. Mm-hmm. So as evidence of blackmail, I don't know that it really amounts to anything.
No,
personally.
But hilarious.
Hilarious nonetheless.
Hilarious. It's giving, it doesn't sound right because the client is Jeffrey Epstein, but paint me like one of your French girls.
Yeah.
But that has a whole different connotation given the Epstein situation. I think the documents that are coming out, thanks to them looking into this JP Morgan case, are fascinating, because we also have documents coming out alleging that Jeffrey Epstein helped connect JP Morgan to high-profile clients, like the Google co-founder Sergey Brin. I think there's just going to be more and more stuff coming out because a lot of these documents are going to be, disclosed to the public thanks to this case.
Yeah. Well, we'll continue to follow that, and we'll have more Rising right after this.